Is it actually possible to be a good hostess when you're in the stage of dealing with toddler tantrums and nursing babies and all of the chaos that comes with being a mom to young children? Hi, I am Rachel from 7 and All, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing encouragement for other busy homeschool moms of how you can create habits of hospitality in your own life. And I just want to make hospitality, having people over, feeding people, being generous with your home and your food seem more attainable and less like something that belongs in a magazine. This is a collab with my friend Megan from Pennies and Salt. She was recently talking about how she was feeling about hospitality and wanting to be more open with her home. And I have only recently been able to start being hospitable and inviting other people into my home again, because for a long time during COVID, I was living in a condo that literally did not allow you to invite any visitors over, which makes it very difficult to be hospitable. So both of us are working on getting back into the habit of hospitality, and I'm going to be linking to her video down below so that you can see her thoughts and her encouragement for you as well. Now, I think as a mom of young kids, it's so easy to kind of get trapped in this cycle of, oh, I really value hospitality. I want to be hospitable. I want to be that home where all of my kids want to bring their friends over to, and the home where everyone hangs out at, and that where we always have food. We can always, lay an extra seat at the table for someone else. We can always get into the cycle of saying all those things, but then kind of all of a sudden we wake up one morning and we haven't even had anyone over in 6 months because we've been so busy. It just hasn't worked out. It's been hard to make time for it, or overwhelming to even think about planning it. But how can we get back in the habit of being hospitable, in the habit of having an open doors and an open table in our home? As homemakers, we can become sometimes overly focused on taking care of our own families and our own homes. But we do want to remember the value, the beauty, and the joy of also taking care of others who can benefit from it. And we cannot actually end up isolated when we end up we're just taking care of our home and our people. But when we are willing to open up our homes, open up our tables, we can find ourselves in a much stronger, interconnected community and not feeling so isolated by motherhood. So I see hospitality is a good thing. We kind of see it as something that we do to serve other people, but I see it as it's a very good thing for us. It's a very good thing for our hearts to open our homes, to open our tables to other people. But what are some practical ways to build the habit of hospitality? I say number one, budget for it. And in this sense, not only money, you should budget money for it, but also budget time for it. Sometimes hospitality actually becomes easier when we budget time for it into our week, instead of filling up our whole week with family time and events and practices and church meetings, but budgeting time for hospitality. In different seasons, this has looked very different for us. When I was growing up, for years and years, my family had a habit that every Sunday we had lunch with somebody. We didn't usually know who until on Sunday, and it ended up being, someone different every time. But we always had lunch with someone, and that was budgeting time. On Sundays, we will have lunch with somebody. When my husband and I lived in China, we were very new. We had nobody in the country. So right away we made it a habit. We're gonna have someone over every week. And so then we knew we had that time slot to fill for hospitality. We were gonna make a meal to share with someone every week. Then we had to find someone to fill that slot. So when you create the slot first before finding the person to fill it, sometimes that can be very motivational and can kind of make it easier. This is our time to have people over, so I gotta find a coworker or a neighbor or a friend we haven't seen in a while and invite them to fill that slot. Money can be a very real issue. Food is one of most of our family's biggest expenses, It costs a lot to feed all these growing kids. So I understand it can be very worrisome to figure out well, if I start having people over, that's gonna eat up food that otherwise would have lasted my family for longer. And that's why I say, seek to find a way to budget for food in a way that you can afford to feed people. So maybe you move money away from some savings or from some vacation fund that you're building. Put a little in so that you can make an extra big meal, like the kind of meal you would usually make and expect to feed your family for 2 or 3 meals. And then you can just make that extra big meal and have some people over. And then all of your food will be gone, but you got to feed people. My next practical tip is think outside the box when it comes to hospitality. A lot of times when we think of hosting people, we think of having a whole family over for dinner time and having dinner and then having games and so on afterwards and saying goodnight slowly at the end of the door, at the end of the night, trying to find all the kids that got lost in the house because they don't want to leave their friends and all of that chaos. Sometimes we think hospitality has to look like that, but that might be a little bit too much in some seasons. So think outside the box. Think of smaller or more accessible ways that would fit you right now. Maybe sometimes it's just gonna look like, if you've got older kids and teenagers, maybe you're just having kids over for a movie night and for popcorn and cookies and snacks. And you don't have to do the whole complete dinner thing because kids don't care about complete dinners. They just care about having fun with each other. Or maybe sometimes, and I've seen this a lot, hospitality can look like just giving food to people. Maybe they don't have time to come into your house right now, or maybe they're having a busy schedule, a hard season. Just drop off some brownies at your friend's house. Don't even like warn them ahead of time. Just drop by and give them some brownies. Drop by with a tray of cookies. They're not gonna be mad at you. Don't worry about inconveniencing people. Sometimes you can just feed people at their home as well. That's another option. There are many options to be hospitable that don't always look like the traditional dinner time hospitality meal. And finally, don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to be someone that you're not. For me, hospitality is never going to look like a magazine spread. For some of you, it will. For some of you, it is your passion to make very beautiful, beautiful desserts and tablescapes, and you have like your fancy dishes, so you get out your fancy dishes for company. I don't have fancy dishes. I don't have a fancy farmhouse wooden table. I have a plastic table and plastic chairs, and it's outside, and we eat in the very hot weather under a blowing fan that helps keep it from being a little bit less hot. But it's fun, and it's still a great way to share time with friends, to build relationships, to build community. I do what I can well. I can cook very well. I love my meals. And other people do too, but I really enjoy my own cooking. I miss my cooking when I'm like away from home for a while. So do what you can well, and don't worry if what you can't do or what doesn't naturally come to you. If you don't do that, just don't try to be hospitable by being someone that you're not, but do see, how can I use what I am good at to be a blessing and to serve others, to build community, to kind of draw people together, because in modern life we can become very, very isolated into our big homes with our Wi-Fi and just have our own families, and we're not relying so much on the village. Let's try to bring the village dinners back just a little bit. Let's try to bring connectedness back. And I really hope that you will contemplate on this through November and December, January especially, during the winter times in North America when people often really do feel isolated, is how can you bring people together using your talents, using your skills, whatever you have. How can you budget for that, and how can you make it a habit? I'd love to hear in the comments below, what are some of your tips for how you make hospitality practically possible in your home? Leave me some comments down below and like this video, and I'll be seeing you later. Bye.